And now we have Samurott. The Samurai Otter is the 5th generation's water type starter and also has sea lion-like traits. Its biggest anime appearance was in the Victini movies, where it was, unfortunately, a victim of anime logic and lost to Ash's Tepig in ridiculous fashion. So today, we'll see if it could uphold its honor in an environment devoid of such nonsense. So we ask, how good was Samurott actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. Samurott has solid offensive stats, but its move pool and speed are severely lacking in comparison to OU's water types. The former meant it could not break through common defensive staples such as Ferrothorn and Jellicent, while the latter meant it struggled to keep up against the faster metagame. It was slower than Heatran, who was already considered quite slow as an offensive Pokemon, but unlike Samurott, it had the luxury of excellent stats and the ability to deal with much of the metagame with only a few moves. There was no place for the Otter in OU or in UU, which was still too fast for it to keep up. And it couldn't find a good role in RU either. It's not that it was bad, it's just that it had stiff competition in Crawdon and Feraligatr, who were stronger and had access to Dragon Dance, making them better fits almost always. As a result, Samurott dropped to NU, and there it finally established a real niche. And what a niche it was. It was one of the tier's most defining, dangerous offensive threats. It could attack from both sides of the spectrum, brandishing both immediate power with the mixed set and threatening to sweep with its Swords Dance set. The latter variant helped patch its speed issues since it had Aqua Jet for faster threats, namely Charizard, and for this same reason could even afford to make a sizable bulk investment. Being able to barely hang on against opposing attacks was potentially game-breaking, since it could then strike back with Torrent boosted Aqua Jets, which were incredibly strong when backed by Swords Dance, able to cleave through offensive teams consisting of Pokemon like Sock and Rotom Fan. Most players preferred Lumberry for otherwise debilitating status from the likes of Alomomola and Mischievous, which let Samurott do its job of slicing through defensive teams more effectively, though some liked Mystic Water, which made Samurott more immediately capable of threatening Pokemon like Golurk, Kangaskhan, and revenge killing with Aqua Jet, while becoming potentially truly calamitous in Torrent range. Megahorn was excellent supporting coverage, as its high base power let it threaten Tangela with a boost, absolutely destroy Musharna, make sure Sawsbuck didn't want to switch in, and even pummel neutral targets such as Vileplume and Alomomola if they'd been sufficiently chipped and Samurott had gotten a dance. As fearsome as the Swords Dancer could be at cleaning teams up, the mixed set was feared just as much, if not more, since it was immediately threatening and didn't need to walk on eggshells looking for the perfect switch-in opportunity. It would simply make its way in and begin blasting just about everything. It 2-hit KO'd a huge amount of Pokemon, and the bulkier ones it fell short against, like Alomomola and Musharna, it would taunt, stuffing their recovery, leaving them crippled and unable to counter Samurott the next time it came in. This went a long way in aiding Samurott's teammates in breaking the opponent's defenses as well, making it great team support as well as a standalone threat. It was a consistent contributor in helping its user make progress and force the game into a state where a faster Pokemon could easily take advantage of and clean up against the wrecked remains that Samurott had left behind. Overall, Samurott was one of the best, most dangerous offensive threats in the tier, and as such was one of the definitive black and white NU Pokemon. Samurott may not have been exactly setting the high watermark, but when you go from the wide open ocean to the kiddie pool, it can still start up some waves. Now, what I mean by that incredibly mixed metaphor is that the limited format of VGC 2011 provided a little bit of room for Samurott to thrive. Unova may be a de facto dojo for fighting types, but in terms of water types, the pool is pretty shallow. What, you're gonna use Simipour instead? Sure, Jellicent can be a good trick room setter, but other than that, Unova is a dry land. So even though Samurott has gotten middling special attack and just okay bulk and speed, it can carve out a little bit of a niche as a water type, especially with good coverage it's got. While Samurott's speed tier holds it back, it has the coverage necessary to threaten most of the 2011 metagame's top threats, including Tornadus, Thundurus, Terrakion, and Amoonguss. Even behind the less than great 108 special attack, your choice of Hydro Pump, Scald, Blizzard, Ice Beam, Grass Knot, and Air Slash let Samurott mix and match for your perfect combo of power and accuracy, especially especially with a life orb backing the moves up. Samurott's Bushido background gives it a nifty little boost in the form of Detect, the fighting type version of Protect. While Detect has only 5 PP as opposed to Protect's 10, it's extremely unlikely you're going to use all of those in a match. So what's the benefit? Well, simple. You beat Imprisoned Landorus, an actual threat that was going around at the time. So as you can see, Samurott doesn't quite have a huge X factor to set itself apart. It still faces tough matchups against Pokemon such as Thundurus, especially Electric Gem, and its mediocre special attack means it can't pose a huge threat to Pokemon it can't hit super effectively. Nevertheless, Samurott was able to rise to the top come Worlds, placing third on the team of Matt and Fuego Coil, who brought a team also including the ubiquitous quartet of Thundurus, Tornadus, Scrafty, Terrakion, and the less popular pick of Chandelure. Now, if you don't know about Fuego, go scrunch up some old Smokin' Threads or VODs. The guy is a VGC legend, who these days has mostly sunk into Enigma, as he has withdrawn from the scene. However, Fuego wasn't the only Samurott user in 2011. Special mention goes to Grayson Greysong Garen, who put a spin on the usual Samurott and used a physical variant in both his Nationals and Worlds teams. Grayson Samurott ran Megahorn, Aqua Jet, Swords Dance, and Detect. Grayson specifically wanted to build a team around Samurott, and what he found upon using it was that he could put heavy pressure on both the speedy and slow top threats. Plus 2 Aqua Jet 2-hit KO Terrakion, Thundurus, and Tornadus, and Megahorn was a huge threat to quite a few of the biggest Trick Room setters, such as Reuniclus, Masharna, and Gothitelle. Sure, Chandelure resisted it, but it sure didn't appreciate Aqua Jet. Meanwhile, he gave Samurott max special defense investment and a little bit of HP, ensuring it could usually live Thunderbolts from timid Thundurus without an Electric Gem. Grayson managed to place 5th at the US Nationals with his Samurott, which he always led alongside Amoonguss to set the pace of the match. While he wasn't able to top cut Worlds, he did place a respectable 18th. Then after the decks opened up, Samurott wasn't really able to recapture the same niche it held in 2011. Wolf Glick used it in the Nugget Bridge Major Finals on a somewhat gimmicky entrainment truant trapping team, but Randy R. Inanimate Qua reports that he KO'd it immediately the one game Wolf brought it to. The only other time we can find mention of Samurott is in 2013 when Gavin King of Mars Michaels lost to Adam Dunsworth's Torterra/Samurott team in the first round of the US Nationals. Gavin may have been surprised by Samurott's Life Orb boosted damage output, but he ended up winning the tournament anyway, and Adam missed out on top cut with a 5-4 record. But hey, much respect for using a unique pick. Since Samurott couldn't hack it in the tiers above NU in the previous generation, it was no surprise when the same happened come Generation 6. So basically, it was the usual story of the influx of power creep and Samurott not getting anything new. On the bright side, Samurott was once more a top NU Pokemon, using the exact same 2 sets. The only difference being that on the mixed set, instead of Hidden Power Grass, it now ran Aqua Jet, so that it was more effective overall, as being able to revenge kill Pyroar, Archeops, and Rock Polish Rhydon was a big deal, given how threatening they were. This extra bit of defensive utility went a long way. Now, other than that, it was basically identical to the previous generation. The Pokemon around it had changed, but the way it played didn't much. Sure, it was annoying that it now had Poliwrath around to counter the Swords Dance set, but every Pokemon had counters, and it didn't stop Samurott from being a dangerous sweeper. It just now required a bit more team support before it could gear up for a sweep. The mixed variant was still immediately dangerous and was able to weaken the opposition and break holes for its teammates just like before. The targets were different, but Samurott did its job just the same, especially with Stealth Rock Up. Forcing in and damaging Assault Vest Hariyama opened up a ton of threats, given how hard Hariyama tended to get crushed on by its team as a check to everything, while taunting Mega Audino after it had taken a hit was similarly effective, ensuring Stall would constantly be on the back foot and allowing the Tower of Dominoes to be toppled. It was a simple Pokemon, but it got the job done consistently and was a premier offensive threat, able to sweep or break walls game after game. That said, it was a bit more overshadowed this generation, not nearly as definitive and central to the tier as the generation prior, owing to the metagame being generally faster and bulkier, which made Samurott's stats stand out a lot less than the impressive standard to which they had been held in Generation 5. However, despite being more flawed this time, Samurott was still a fine NU Pokemon and an offensive threat to be reckoned with. While many former NU Pokemon made their way to PU in Generation 7, Samurott was not one of them. It stood its ground and remained in the tier, rejuvenated by the offensive possibilities opened up by the introduction of Z moves, which jacked its Swords Dance set's power levels up to nosebleed heights. Bugnium Z was the standard, as turning Megahorn into a brutally strong Savage Spinout helped Samurott blow apart its common checks, mostly opposing water such as Blastoise, Slowking, Vaporeon, and Seismitoad, though it absolutely melted Whimsicott, Decidueye, Dhelmise, and Heliolisk as well. The perfect accuracy was a nice bonus, as Megahorn famously often made the concept of hit or miss a little too literal. Another nice buff Samurott received was an upgrade to its Water Stab in the form of Liquidation. The extra power and 20% defense drop were both highly useful. If it wasn't concerned with luring its checks and just wanted as much power as possible, it could eschew Bugnium for Waterium and receive quite a meaty stab Hydro Vortex. Samurott wasn't entirely beholden to running Swords Dance sets though. Its old mix set was as effective as ever and could run Life Orb, allowing for a Z move elsewhere on its team. In the last slot usually reserved for Taunt, some players experimented with Knockoff to remove Slowking's Assault Vest, leaving it and Assault Vest Hariyama more crippled in the long run. Removing leftovers would also heavily annoy another common check in Vaporeon. However, the old standby of Taunt ended up being preferred, since it dominated Vaporeon and helped a ton with Mega Audino. While it didn't do anything against the Assault Vest users, most players preferred Samurott to be better against the purely defensive Pokemon, especially since those Assault Vest users could be dealt with fairly easily otherwise. Slowking was susceptible to getting pursuited for damage that even Regenerator wouldn't help too much against, while the non-healing Hariyama would eventually crumble to repeated hits. Once more, mixed Samurott was consistently able to leave exploitable holes in the other teams. Overall, Samurott was a dangerous weapon in NU for the third generation in a row, with its two primary sets. This generation saw it at its most explosive, actually improving upon its stature in ORAS, as opposed to most Pokemon who steadily declined with each passing generation. And that's it. So how good was Samurott actually? Well, it's been an NU lifer, and it's been a great Pokemon ever since it debuted in Generation 5. It wasn't flawless, and it dipped a little bit in Generation 6, but the fact that it remained NU as opposed to dropping to PU was impressive in itself, and it came roaring back with a vengeance in Generation 7. With its two sets, Swords Dance and Mixed, it's always a threat, and if it returns in Generation 8, there seems no reason it wouldn't be a fine NU Pokemon once more. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Samurott? How would you improve it to make it not NU, maybe at least RU? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.